Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Black Girl Encourage Her. I am your host, Shaniqua Inspires, and you already know I've got a special, let's say, treat for you on today. So I'm going to go ahead and bring today's guest to the stage so we can talk all about this special treat you're about to get. So I'm welcoming to the stage Miss Georgina. Hey girl, hey.
Hey.
Listen, I want you to introduce yourself to everyone because you and I met at an event, but I have to be honest, we didn't get a chance to really talk or really get to know each other. So please introduce yourself to me and to the people.
Firstly, Shanika, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you chose me to be on today because it was such an amazing experience meeting you. So I'll be glad to introduce myself. Hello, beautiful people. I am Georgina Jean-Dusseck, and I am the CEO and founder of JD Body Treats, which is a self-care boutique retail chain with the focus on holistic wellness for the mind, body, and spirit. So I sell a variety of products that are geared toward different journeys of different aspects of people's self-care journeys, whether you're improving your mental health and well-being or your emotional health and well-being, or you're focused on caring for your body or taking time for you, and as well as spiritual well-being. So we have a variety of things, everything from aromatherapy infused personal care items to journals to empowering mugs and t-shirts. It's all about knowing that you're worthy of the love and care you pour into others and that you're deserving of pouring it into yourself.
I love that because self care is key.
Yes.
Self care is key. So, we're going to put a pin in that conversation for just a second. I wanted to specifically talk to you today about this thing called fear.
Yeah.
Have you ever been afraid of something in your life, Georgina?
Absolutely. Most people who know me as being pretty fearless.
Okay.
But it came from me intentionally overcoming small fears and then medium-sized fears and then larger fears. So I'm 27 years old and I've already opened up two boutiques, and then I have this insane vision to have 200 locations by 2030. So it's a big vision, and some people say to me, like, people who aren't entrepreneurs ask me, like, how has it been like being an entrepreneur? Isn't it scary? And people who are entrepreneurs have asked me things like, how are you able to take like such huge leaps and like such huge risks? Like what are you afraid of, and how do you tackle that fear? And in my mind, I'm always talking to people and telling myself that on the other side of fear is breakthrough. It's usually the things that you're afraid to do because either no one has done it before, you don't have the example of how to do it, or any information about how to get it done. It's when you step out and you step off the cliff that you realize that you can fly a lot of the times. And then sometimes you fall, and that's okay. I'm a big believer in failing forward as well.
Yeah.
But the fact is that if you don't do it, if you don't take a leap of faith, if you don't do it scared when your heart is racing and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you don't move, you stay where you are. So I'm always encouraging people to do it scared, to do it even if you are afraid. Like, do it when your heart is beating a little fast. That's when you know you're pushing some boundaries.
Yes, yes. Wow. Wow, 27. That's impressive.
Thank
To
you.
have these businesses, to have this business idea, where did that stem from? Like, did you go to business school? Like, give us a little background as to how JD Body Treats came about.
So I actually was an executive assistant prior to running my own business. I started off in the fashion industry. I started my career pretty young because I went to the High School of Fashion Industries, and at that time They had like a ton of internship opportunities, and I thought I wanted to do fashion. So I quickly learned, like, while being in the actual industry, that I hated like ripping seams and sewing and things of that nature. And I loved the business side of things. So going into college, I actually did get a degree in business management from Monroe College. And at that time, when I was graduating, I graduated pretty early because I went to school all year round. So I actually got my bachelor's when I was 20. And at the time, I had already had 2 children, and I had one on the way. So,
Wow.
that's another topic for another day. But I had my children very young and very close in age. I was working in the fashion industry as an executive assistant. This is before I got into to the field of finance. And the company I was at, like, they treated me really terribly, and I allowed it. And at the time, I didn't know my worth. I didn't have clear boundaries. There were certain things that I accepted that I wouldn't accept today. And I remember sitting at my desk, and I was like, God, I don't know what's happening right now, but like, give me a vision. I want to do something. I don't know what it is, but I need to get out of here. That was the conversation I had with God. So at the same time, two of my children, like I said, I was pregnant at the time. Two of my children had eczema. And every time I took them to the doctors, like, the doctors couldn't do anything about it. So finally, I just started making my own skincare at home, and for the kids, just to heal their skin. And I started to use things like essential oils and things like that. And I realized, like, while I was making the stuff, I was like, wow, I really feel good. Prior to working as an executive assistant, I also worked in luxury retail, like, while I was in college. So long story short, I'm sitting at my desk, and I get this vision of, like, someone opening up like a luxurious looking package. And like, it was just like this feeling of just like, I'm doing this for me. Like, it was a very beautiful feeling. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but what I want to give that feeling to people. I want people, whatever I do, I didn't know what the product was going to be yet. I didn't know what the service was going to be. I was like, whatever I do, I want people to feel worthy. I want people to feel like they have a special treat. When I worked in luxury lingerie, I used to love, like, the customers' reactions when they would get like the correct fitting bra, and like the difference in their posture and their confidence. So I wanted to create that feeling over and over and over again for different people. So I didn't know how. And then finally I was like, oh my gosh, I'm creating skincare for my children. But I didn't want it to just be skin deep. I was like, how do I make this more about the experience, rather than just like, oh yeah, I look beautiful, which is absolutely amazing. And I don't knock that, but I wanted to just be deeper. So long story short, I started to do research on aromatherapy and holistic wellness and herbs, and the effects of essential oils on our brains and our moods and things of that nature. And that's where JD Body Treats came from. So originally it was for the body, like a treat for the body. But then as the company evolved and my life experience drastically evolved, and I experienced like a lot of situations in which I wasn't valuing myself in a way that a person should. And, there's no rule or metric to it, but my self-worth just wasn't where it was. And I allowed so many things in my life to happen that had I known the things I know today, I probably would not have allowed. So going through that experience, and even at one point putting my business before myself and not caring for myself, I ended up shifting the brand years later to be more about just holistic wellness and self-care for the mind, body, and spirit, rather than just for the skin. And just emphasizing the importance of pouring into you, because I was always the kind of person to constantly pour into everything else except for myself, until I got to the point where my cup was empty. So, now my message has become more about filling your cup, and pouring into you, and making sure that you have enough to give, and just to love on you, whether you're giving or not, like, just love on you regardless, without any hesitation. So yeah, that's a little bit of the history of where we are today with the brand.
So how can I ask this question? How did you prepare for the great escape? So from leaving your corporate position, secure position, how did you prepare yourself to go after your vision? Or was there any preparation at all?
There was no preparation. So the journey, I definitely left out a lot. But I actually didn't leave corporate after that job. What ended up happening was in 2018, my mother um, had an incident where she was struggling really badly with her mental health,
Mm,
and she made an attempt on her life.
mm,
And at that time, the attempt wasn't successful, but she did a lot of damage to the point where, like, it ended up being the reason why she passed away in 2022.
wow.
But what ended up happening was at that time when I was like brainstorming and starting the business and planning on leaving this job, I was in an abusive relationship with my children's father. Um, but I stayed in it because I wanted to like prove that, like, I was a young mom and I could keep it together. Like, I could keep my family together. I had something to prove. Like, I kept pushing because I had to prove that I could do it and that I wouldn't just be another statistic. But in the process of doing it, I kept myself in unhealthy situations, like staying at that job that was also abusive,
Come
because
on.
I wanted to prove, like, I'm a young mom of three, but I also have this amazing job as an executive assistant at this high-end fashion company, which was killing, like literally killing me every day. Like, I would dread waking up and going to work. So the relationship, the company, and then it was like everything that I was doing, it was for show. Like, I would post things on Facebook and make it seem like everything was perfect, because I just had to prove to everyone that I was okay, that
Mhm.
everything was great, and that I was living this dream life.
Yeah.
So when my mother made that attempt, that's when, like, it was like a rock to my glass house. Like, everything was just exposed and
Wow.
everything came tumbling down, because forget social media, I felt like I had to prove to my mother that I didn't
Mm,
make a mistake by having children so young, that I was doing everything right, because now I have this amazing career, and this, I was engaged at the time, this amazing soon to be husband,
yeah.
and everything's perfect. So when she made that attempt, I reflected on her life, and my mother was the epitome of joy. Like, when she would burst into the room, she would light up the room. Her voice was booming and loud, and her energy was amazing, and she was a praying warrior, and she would be out there praying and healing people, but behind closed doors she
Right.
was crumbling. She was dealing with so much in between, post-traumatic stress disorder from domestic violence and so many other things. So I'm just saying that to say, like, when I saw her situation, while I admired her for her strength and her courage and all that she's overcome, I realized that I didn't want to end up like that. Like bleeding behind closed doors and
Mhm.
smiling in a public eye, to the point where it destroyed me and where I wouldn't want to be here anymore. So at that point, I decided to let it go. I left my abusive children's father. I let the job go. Um, I ended so many things that year. This is like the end of 2018. Like, so many things, I just let it go. Like, I like I didn't really expose everything on social media, but I was open about all the things that I had been going through, because I wanted people to know, like, people were always like looking at my family and thinking like we were perfect because we were going on trips. And, I was only 20, like 20 or 21 at the time, and I had my own place, and everything just looked perfect, and I just had to let people know, like, it's not what it looks like. And it's important that if you're going through a situation, especially abuse, that you seek help, and that you're not lying to anyone else or yourself about it, because it can be so detrimental. So
Wow.
with that being said, I actually left all of those things, and I kept my business going, and then I moved. I was about done with corporate, but then the wife so I'm sorry. I got hired by someone in private equity, because I used to work for his wife when I was a teenager in the fashion industry.
Wow.
So I spoke to her. She was like a mentor. Her name is Carla. And she says to me, like, "Oh, G, what are you up to?" Like, she just so happened to call me. So I told her about the situation with my mom, and I told her how I left my job and I had my business. But, like, I had to figure it out, because I had these at the time, my daughter was 9 months, my middle son was 1.5, or something like that. Sorry if I got the numbers mixed up, but like almost 2, and then my first son was 3. So it was like,
Wow.
it was insane, and I was 21. But
Mm,
unfortunately, like, I was always like pretty financially savvy, so like I had a little bit of a cushion, And I knew, like, I could do things with my business, which was like moving slow at the time, but I had the mindset and the skill set to be able to pick something else up pretty quickly in corporate.
Mhm.
So I just left my options open. She's like, well, my husband is hiring. And I was like, finance? Like, I'm not gonna, like, what? I've been in the fashion industry since I was a teenager. Like, I'm not switching over to finance. But I was like, you know what? I'll just go and check it out. So long story short, I go and check it out, and it's an office of 9 people, and like 7 out of 9 of them are middle-aged white men. Is one Asian guy and one old like guy from I don't know where, but somewhere in Europe. But
Mhm.
and I was really hesitant because I was like, I don't want to be the only woman and the only Black woman at this company. But when I tell you, it was one of the best decisions I could have ever made.
Wow.
um they really treated me like family. I actually just came back from one of their annual meetings. Like they really treated me like family. So I stayed there for 2 more years, and then that's when the pandemic happened, and I just made the leap to open my stores because my sales and everything just shot up. So I was just like,
Wow.
you know what, this is a little scary. I'm at a company that is really amazing, the salary is great, they treat me really well, but I'm gonna take the leap, and I did.
Wow, wow. Well, I mean, that's a prime example. That's a prime example of doing it scared. And I believe this is a message that people need to hear because oftentimes people let fear be the reason why they don't do X, Y, or Z. But you're literally giving a testimony to say it was because of that fear that ended up becoming, your stepping stones to where you are now, and enough so that you now have this expansive vision as to where you want to see your business to grow. And I believe that it can be possible, that it can and it will be so for you, because even despite your youth, I think a lot of times we think of youth as like a downfall,
Yep.
but it actually worked to your advantage. Not to say that having kids, like, we're not promoting teenage pregnancy, but
No.
like, it's just like, no, not,
I
no, don't do it.
cannot and don't recommend.
But it, at least it wasn't the detriment that the world tells us is the outcome, right? So you were able to still find success even with making these decisions as a young girl. You're still now very well seasoned, if I may say so. Like, you're very well seasoned in business and what it is that you are trying to give back to this world. So I thank you for your testimony. And yeah, things are scary in life, but we have to find the balance. We have to find the strength. So give us some words of encouragement. So act, like you're speaking directly to someone. To someone tuned in, they were scrolling through YouTube, and all of a sudden, boom, here comes the Black girl. Encourage her. And they're listening to your testimony, and you got them to hold still. What words of encouragement would you give that person about tapping in, finding that strength to do it scared?
I'm gonna pause for a second just so I can find the right words.
Mhm.
If I were to giving that encouragement and words of advice, I would highly recommend that you get quiet so that you can hear yourself. So what I mean by that is that a lot of the times we have a lot of noise in our life. We have the radio, we have the TV, we have social media, we have our friends, we have our family. Find ways to get quiet so that you can hear you, because a lot of the times the things we fear and the things in our mind aren't even our own voices. And when you take the time to get quiet and hear you, kind of like I had to get quiet and hear me just
Yes.
now, you are able to discern not only in decision making, but on what your next move should be, what you want for yourself. A lot of the times, especially when our family has such influence over us, because I'm not gonna lie, like I really didn't start living and understanding what I wanted for myself. And of course, the situation with my mom was extremely unfortunate. But it was once I no longer felt like I had to live for her approval, because I became her caretaker afterward.
Mhm.
So, I was young, but it was like I was taking care of my mom, and I always everything I used to do, except for getting pregnant. I used to be like, what is my mom gonna think? What is my mom gonna think? What is my family gonna say? So honestly, what happened was a major part of, like, I almost want to say, like, my liberation, because after that, like, I didn't care what anybody else thought about
Mhm.
what I decided to do.
Yeah.
And it was painful, but it's always almost like, it depends on how you look at life. Things can be very uh bad, or you can find the good in it. There's no seeing good. You could just find it. Like, you can find, like, how can I make the situation better? Like, for instance, prior to that, my mom's situation, I spent time with her, but I spent more time with her in the last 3 years of her life than I would have probably, unfortunately, had that situation not happened.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that to say, get quiet. And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes it may be waking up earlier in the morning than everyone and just sitting in silence. And if
Mhm.
silence is a challenge for you, try guided focus meditations.
Mhm.
Detaching, doing like social media detox, like not scrolling for a few days, or just decreasing the time. Reading, I highly, highly recommend reading. Like, I stopped reading for a few years, and once now I'm back to it, and I'm like, what in the world? How did I stop expanding my mind? And if you can't read, listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
But do things that are for you. Get quiet, sip your tea, go for quiet walks in the morning, go far into nature, even if you got to take the metro north if you're not driving, or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be. But when you get quiet, you hear you more, you hear your higher self, you hear God or the universe, whichever the viewer relates to. But there's a powerful voice inside of you. There's a powerful voice outside of us, and the more quiet you get, the more you can hear it. So
Yes.
yeah.
That's great advice. And it is self care. It is self care. And so I want to ask you this question. And, you know, I pray that you receive this question in its intention, because I want to make a correlation. So you shared with us about this experience with your mom and her mental health struggle. And now, fast forward years later, you're in this business. Not only it started out as, skin, like, oh, I'm not ashy, but now it's more about the self care. And we know that self care is a key factor. It's an important factor. And if you don't have it, yes, your mental health can be disrupted. So, is it safe to say that your experience with your mom and her mental health issues was the thing that kind of catapulted you to being the advocate that you are for mental health and self care?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just my mom, my brother as well. My brother, unfortunately, his demise was due to mental health challenges as well. Literally a week after my mom passed in 2022. So, like, that made me a full-on advocate for mental health stability and wellness and things of that nature. That's why, like, even now I've been having some challenges now, like trying to figure out how I can really full on pivot the brand and allow people to understand that, like, JD Body Treats is not a beauty brand. JD Body
Mhm.
Treats is a holistic wellness brand. Like, you'll hear like anybody that hears me do an interview or speak anywhere now, they hear me say that and they're like, well, it says body. And I'm like, well, I'm not changing the name,
Yeah,
because,
yeah.
our body, holistically, our body
Mhm,
is our mind, body, and
mhm.
spirit. But that has significantly impacted my journey. And when I first got my stores, the amount of people that would come in and the way I would deal with my customers and understand like how huge mental health was and the movement people and the shift people are taking with being more open to hearing about it and understanding it, especially since the pandemic, it really moved me and also moved me more towards this direction. But that definitely was just
Yeah.
like the floodgates.
Mhm.
You know, I always say at the root of my mission is for me to save as many lives as possible.
Mhm.
And it may seem like, you know, a bath bomb or a bath salt or a scrub won't save a life, but when you're teaching people that they're valuable and they're worthy and to take moments for themselves, it makes such a huge difference. Even myself as a mother, a young single mom of 3, a business owner, and honestly like a advocate, like, you know, I'm always guest speaking and attending certain events and pouring into people. Like, I have challenges at times where my mental health dips ups and down. I struggle with PTSD at times from the situation with my mother and brother in 2022, and I'm in therapy and I've been in life coaching programs and things of that nature. And what keeps me really sane and keeps me really on track and keeps me progressing and whole is my self-care routines.
Mhm.
Like every day I have specific tasks set out for specific times that I do religiously. I
Mhm.
do my morning exercise, my morning meditation, my journaling, my tea, my affirmations, like while I'm walking around cleaning, like I go on YouTube and put on affirmations depending on what I'm feeling in that moment. If I'm feeling sad, I put affirmations for sadness or affirmations for anger or affirmations for joy and abundance or anxiety, like whatever is happening in that moment. Like I can go on YouTube and find affirmations for it. And it's a matter of like reprogramming my mindset, because honestly, I've been in dark places before. And
Mhm.
especially after what happened with my mother and brother, like I don't even remember some of the like the months after, to be honest, sometimes. And I was just like, you know, I'm out here like preaching self-care. I have to live it.
Yeah.
So I'm huge on maintaining my own mental and emotional well-being. And like, you know, something may seem as simple as a scrub or a bath salt, but the aromatherapy, like aromatherapy is a huge
Yes.
practice that a lot of people don't realize is actually really medicinal. Like those plant-based oils can
Mhm.
actually do things like increase serotonin and endorphins, like the same feeling you get when you like exercise or you eat your favorite snack or something, that can be created through these plant-based oils in your brain and ease things like anxiety and depression. So long story short, yes, it's affected me a lot and it's
Mhm.
affected my mission. And I just like every day I walk and talk what
Yeah.
I do and what I share with the world, because if I don't, then how am I going to keep pouring if my cup is not full?
You're doing it scared, right?
Yeah,
You're literally doing it scared.
yeah.
And I know many people who are watching, you may have a family history of mental health disorders or mental health issues, but that does not have to be your story. And I love how you really just painted a picture for us to say, hey, wait a sec, hold up a second. Just because I'm the guest speaker, just because this is what I do, I'm an advocate and I'm here, there, and everywhere speaking on this, does not negate the fact that it's a struggle for you at times, but
Mhm.
you've learned to take charge of it,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't, those thoughts of what happened to your mom and what happened to your brother doesn't overshadow the power that you have to be able to take care of yourself. And you study, you know, the plant-based, you know, essential oils, like this
Mhm.
is something that you've spent time, effort, and energy in. So yes, you got degrees and you know, you did your finance and
Yeah.
fashion and everything here, there, and everywhere. But you know what, your true strength and your true power came from the situation that you were thrusted into.
Yep.
So sometimes it's the experience, it's the living that becomes your greatest teacher. And that's what's going to make your business such a success. Not that you went to school for bath bombs and skincare and all of this stuff. It's because it's fueled from a passion there's a drive to say, no, this is not going to be my story. We're breaking generational curses. This will not go into my children or my children's children.
Yep.
So there's a power that comes to you as you're igniting your business. One of the guests that I had previously on this show made a comment, and it just, whoa, it set off some bells and whistles to me. She made a comment to say, just because you like something doesn't necessarily mean you should go into business for it,
Yep.
right? So yeah, we go to school, we learn this, we think this is the career path because this is the
Mm.
acceptable path. There are many people who become doctors and lawyers and police officers because it's the acceptable profession. But then there's that time, there's a small remnant where there's this gifting, and that gifting just so happens to be wrapped up by your trials and your tribulations and life's woes. But that is really the secret sauce. That is where your power really begins to erupt. So, as much as we do not wish this on anyone else, we do not like the fact that you've had this mental health struggle in your family. But to be honest, it birthed something so beautiful that we all now can be the beneficiary. And not only are you severing the ties in your own family bloodline, you're helping others to do the same. So, honey, I agree with you that JD Body Treats is much more. It's not even. It's so not about skincare at this
Mhm.
point. It's so not. It really, truly is a holistic blessing
Thank you.
that we definitely need to get the mission and the word out. So tell us where your shops are located. How can we get these products?
Yeah, so previously I was located in the Bronx. We were in the 3rd Avenue in the Parkchester area, but I shut those. Yeah, I shut those 2 locations down because we were in residential areas. So now we're planning on getting into the JFK Mall, hopefully by the JFK Airport,
Okay.
hopefully by the end of, I want
Oh,
to say, 2025, and then we're also looking into the New Jersey Dream Mall. So it's been
wow.
a journey. Originally, I opened up in residential neighborhoods because I wanted to bring holistic wellness to the South
Mhm.
Bronx and other underserved neighborhoods. But honestly, I spoke to my mentor, and my mentor looked at my profits, and she was like, "Girl, I know you
Mhm.
want to help, but you got to get up and then pour. Like you
Yeah.
can't try to keep doing it while you're on the way up. You know,
Mhm.
as much as I want to bring people with me, I have to do what's profitable first and then come back and pour into the neighborhoods once I reach a certain amount because then I can do more. So it was very hard for me. And I'm not gonna lie, like I miss it so much, especially
Mhm.
my South Bronx location, which was like literally a couple blocks from me. It was an amazing journey while we were there, but you know, we'll definitely be back in a couple of years. But in the meantime, we're trying to get into a lot more mall spaces,
Yeah.
and then we'll be back in the residential neighborhoods as the company grows.
And see, this is the thing.
Yeah.
The people have to support this. So
Yeah.
if people want it in their backyards, this is what they need to speak on.
Mhm.
And as much as, we love, the classic stores, we've grown accustomed to the classic stores in our neighborhoods. We do need to advocate for more holistic. We can do without another Chinese restaurant. I said it, I'm
Exactly.
sorry, but the MSG is
Yeah.
killing us, right? We can do without another liquor store, right? A check cashing place. These
Mhm.
are the things that we classically see in our
Yeah.
neighborhoods, and not everybody's neighborhood, but many of our neighborhoods. And we need to be advocates for things that are more healthy for us, like fruit stands.
Yeah.
Fruit stands. I mean, let me tell you how many restaurants with the saturated fats and the excess sodium I pass trying to get to the one fruit stand. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
so
really sad, and to be honest, like, we were pretty well supported, especially on 3rd Avenue, but a part of me, like, shutting down on locations did have a lot to do with the fact that one, it was a challenge, like just trying to break even, but also the situation with my mother and my brother, and I had to like really step back.
Mhm.
But I really noticed, like, while I was in these neighborhoods, and like it was a struggle to like get a certain amount of customers on a regular basis, like a lot of people are in survival mode. And as
Yes.
much as like sometimes I used to like think like we used to have a joke when we would have like pop-up shops, because I not only sold my brand in my stores, I also sold a lot of small minority owned businesses,
Nice.
stuff that was local, because I was all about like bringing other businesses together. So
Mhm.
we used to have a joke during the pop-up shops, like, we would be outside like handing out flyers and getting people in through the door, and like, people would kind of like walk by, but then we used to be like, we got Coochie, we got Prada, we got Juicy Couture, whatever, and then
Mhm.
people would start looking. And
Mhm.
then like it was almost like a social experiment sometimes. Like
Mhm.
it's just like it's unfortunate, but especially in underserved neighborhoods, it's a program.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
since birth, in our music, in our
Mhm.
advertisements, on the radio, everywhere, like even social media now, it's a program, and people are literally following their scripts. It reminds me of the movie Who Cloned Tyrone, which
Yes, girl, yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really a movie or not, but
Yeah.
so it's really sad and it's unfortunate, but I am grateful for the lives that we were able to touch while we were in these neighborhoods. And now, even now, my customers hit me up, or like they'll see me outside and they're like, girl, we miss you. And I'm like, I miss y'all too. I'm gonna be back, but I want to be able to do more. So aside from the business, I'm eventually planning to start a nonprofit as well.
Nice.
But in the meantime, I've already been doing a lot of the work, like going and advocating in domestic violence shelters. And the nonprofit is supposed to be a program for suicide prevention,
Mhm.
and for thrivers of domestic violence and previous attempts of suicide. So it's supposed to be like intervention in a pretty package. So it'll look like giving like self-care plans and classes,
Oh, wow.
teaching people about I know it sounds like, how do you teach someone to find their self-worth, but like taking them through certain exercises and workshops that allows them to experience their worthiness, and really like let it stick to them. Because from my experience with my mother and brother and other people who have struggled with being repeat victims of abuse, a lot of the times it's a word, and myself, I'm talking like I haven't gone through it.
Right.
A lot of the times it's a worthiness conversation. So at the root of this whole self-care and pretty stuff is the worthiness conversation that I'm really trying to get to. So eventually that'll be something else that comes of JD Body Treats, like as a nonprofit mission. But yeah, it's a lot of things in the work, and I'm excited. And like I said, we're doing this small space things, and that's more on the profit side of things, and of course like spreading the message. But my heart really, really lies in these underserved neighborhoods and communities.
I love it. And you know what? You're right. You say, well, how do you teach somebody their self-worth? Well, it's about the programming, right? So
Mhm.
now we've got to teach people, we got to help them to unlearn what they've learned and held on to as factual and truth and the be all. And now we've got to teach them something anew.
Exactly.
And so it is about reprogramming. So just the way you can program someone to only want to come in a shop when there's Gucci or Prada or Louis or something like that, you can totally reprogram someone to say, oh, is this going to improve my health and well-being?
Right, right,
Right, and not just look for the clinic.
right.
Right, what about the
Tips.
preventative? Right,
Yep.
what do we do before you actually need the doctor? So we should start to look for those things that can be a solution, that could almost be like the problem solver before the problem even becomes, especially if we know in advance what the problem could be. With
Hmm.
the domestic violence, we know
Yep.
that comes from the low self-worth and the self-esteem issues and things of that nature. So if we know that, how do we counteract it? How do we attack it
And
before
even
it becomes—
recognize it too.
exactly, exactly.
I used to always get so frustrated when I was I don't even like to say victim, but when
Mhm.
I was, you know, when I was in the situation. I
Mhm.
used to hate when people would say, people only do what you allow. I would get so mad and say, like, oh, what do you mean people only do what you allow? Like, I'm a victim. But
Mhm.
then, coming out of it and stepping from victim into warrior,
Mhm.
I realized, like, there's certain things I just won't allow now because of the self-worth that I built up.
Yeah.
Like, like, don't even raise your voice 2 octaves at me,
Love
you know? That's a red like, I don't even do red
Yeah.
flags anymore. I do yellow and orange flags.
Yes, honey.
Forget red
Yes.
flag. If it's orange, I don't want it.
Yes.
So, it's a conversation, and and of course that the whole victim statement does not apply to certain situations, especially like people under a certain age and things of that nature. But that's the purpose, is like teaching people how to do these acts of self-love and self-care, because when you start to treat yourself a certain way, you won't allow
That's right.
certain treatment from other places. And I really learned that, especially now that I'm really deep into my self-care journey. So,
Yes.
if you're not gonna treat me how I treat me, I don't want you. Or even better, I don't
Exactly.
want you. So,
Exactly.
it's about like just planting those seeds and hoping that they really sprout.
I love it. Listen, Georgina, this was a pleasure to be able to speak to you, to get to know a little bit more about your mission. Do you have any parting words that you want to leave with the audience?
Hmm. Yeah. My parting words would be, just because I'm so big on it for myself now, continue to educate yourself no matter what field you're in or what you know. Audiobooks, like I said, if you don't have the focus or the time to read, like, just listen to audiobooks, listen to books in the self-help genre. I would highly recommend the 5 a.m. Club, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. For my ladies, especially, We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers.
Okay.
These are all books that are tied into like getting your life in order and like really getting to the core of things, like not just the hacking at the leaves of like, have this personality or show up this way or do this. It's just like it gets into the core of your being, as well as help you establish like healthy boundaries and methods to practically succeed, because you're getting to the root of certain challenges that you may be facing. So, just start back listening to books. A lot of the times we're always looking for mentors, and mentors are great. But if you're looking for a lot of information without feeling like you're taking too much time from anyone or having to do things on someone else's time, I highly recommend listening to those books. And then also visit jdbodytreats.com. A lot of our products are on the site, and we are coming out with the self-care kits and self-care day menus pretty soon, which is going to be a really an amazing launch that we're doing. So stay
Love
tuned for that.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Georgina, hang out for just a second. I've got to give the people their marching orders. Listen, everyone, that was a great segment. And I hope and pray that you took away some gems from this conversation. Because listen, we got to get to the root of the problem. And the problem is many of us are not certain or secure about who we are. So I thank you for tuning into this week's message of the Black Girl. Encourage her. I need you to subscribe and I need you to share, because there's someone in your circle that you know needs to hear this healing conversation. So make certain you are sharing, you're subscribing, and you're going to meet us back here next week for another amazing segment of the Black Girl. Encourage her. Be blessed.